I've always been skeptical about the supernatural. Ghosts, demons, spiritual warfare. It all sounded like fantasy or religious exaggeration to me. I grew up hearing stories from older people in my family, warning us not to mess with certain things, but I brushed them off. I thought, these people just watch too many movies. I believed in God, yes. I went to church once in a while, I prayed when I remembered, but I didn't think much about spiritual battles. To me, life was practical. You worked, you ate, you slept. Simple. Until the night that changed everything. It was just a normal evening. I had come home from work, cooked some noodles, scrolled on my phone for a bit, then got ready for bed. Nothing felt out of place. The lights were off, the fan was on, and I laid in bed scrolling through YouTube videos until my eyes grew heavy. I remember one video in particular. A short testimony clip about a woman who claimed to see a demon in her dream. I laughed at it. People will say anything for views, I thought. I even scrolled to the comments and typed, "This sounds fake." Then I turned off my phone and laid my head down. That was the last peaceful moment I had that night. Maybe an hour later I woke up, but I couldn't move. My eyes were open and I was fully conscious, but my body was locked. Completely paralyzed. At first I thought I was dreaming, maybe having sleep paralysis, which I'd heard people talk about. But this wasn't just paralysis. There was a weight in the room. A thick, almost physical heaviness pressing down on me, like the air itself had turned into lead. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. I tried to wiggle my fingers, lift a leg. Nothing. My heart was racing. My chest started to feel tight, like someone was sitting on it. That's when I noticed the temperature in the room. The fan was still turning, but the air felt icy cold, unnaturally cold. Not like air conditioning, but the kind of cold that crawls under your skin. Every hair on my body stood up. Then I saw it. In the far corner of my room by the door, a shadow was forming. At first, I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But no, it moved. It wasn't the shadow of anything in the room. It had its own shape. Tall, hunched, with arms too long for its body. It didn't have eyes that I could see, but I could feel it staring at me. And that feeling, it's hard to explain. It was like being hated to the core of your existence. I've never felt that kind of evil before. It wasn't just watching me. It wanted me dead. I tried to scream. I tried everything I could to break free. But I was frozen, helpless. The shadow figure slowly started moving toward me, gliding without sound. I felt tears form in my eyes, but I couldn't even cry. I was fully awake and completely powerless. When it got closer, I felt something press against my chest like invisible hands. My breathing became shallow. My vision started to blur. I knew, this thing wasn't just here to scare me. It wanted to kill me. I've never felt that kind of fear. Not in a movie. Not in real life. Nothing compares to knowing something evil is touching you and you can't fight it. Then, right as I thought it would all end, I remembered something. Just one thing. It was like a tiny light in a pitch-black room. A flashback from when I was maybe 8 years old, sitting in my grandmother's lap during a storm. She was praying softly and said to me, "Whenever you're in danger and you don't know what to do, just say the name of Jesus. Even if you can't say it out loud, say it in your heart. That name has power." I hadn't thought about that moment in years. But suddenly, it was the only thing I could think of. I couldn't speak. My lips wouldn't move. But in my mind, as loud as I could, I said, "Jesus." The very instant I did, something changed. The shadow paused. The weight on my chest seemed to pull back just a little. I said it again in my spirit, "Jesus." And the air around me started to feel different. I can't explain it. It didn't all vanish at once, but it was like the beginning of something shifting. Like a crack of light in a dark cave. At that moment, I knew I wasn't just imagining things. This was real. And whatever was in that room with me knew it too. I didn't see the full light yet. I didn't see the full escape. But something had been triggered the moment I called his name. And the battle was just beginning. I lay there in the darkness, still unable to move, but now aware of something different. I had whispered the name of Jesus in my heart. And even though my mouth hadn't opened and no sound had come out, the atmosphere responded. The shadow froze. The heaviness didn't leave completely, but it flinched, like it had been pierced. That was the moment I realized what I was up against wasn't just a nightmare. It was something spiritual, something real. And the name of Jesus, it carried weight, power. But the fight wasn't over. The figure stood still at the foot of my bed. I could feel it watching me. I could sense the rage growing. That pause I had felt, the hesitation, was now turning into fury. The room seemed to throb with an evil tension, like it was offended I had dared to call on Jesus. Then without warning it lunged forward. My entire body shook. There are no words to fully describe what it felt like. It wasn't a seizure. It wasn't a spasm. It was like something was gripping my soul and trying to pull it out of my body. My chest arched off the bed. My jaw clenched. I still couldn't scream. I couldn't even cry. It felt like 1,000 volts of fear rushing through my veins. I could feel invisible hands wrap around my throat. Tighter and tighter. I was suffocating. This wasn't some creepy dream. I knew in my bones I was dying. This thing came to take my life. And I couldn't fight it physically. There was no one to call. My phone was right beside me, but what could I do with it? My arms still wouldn't move. My lungs were screaming for air, but the pressure on my neck was relentless. I had never felt so alone. But deep down, even in the panic, something in me kept reaching. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Over and over in my thoughts I cried out. I couldn't form the words with my mouth, but in my heart, I was screaming his name with every ounce of desperation I had left. Each time I said it in my spirit, something small would shift. The grip would loosen, then tighten again, but weaker. The atmosphere would pulse. The darkness would resist. It was like this thing hated even hearing his name. Like it couldn't stand it. But it was stubborn. It wasn't leaving easily. My eyes rolled back. My breathing slowed. I genuinely thought, this is it. I'm going to die here and no one will even know what happened. But then, something happened. In the middle of that battle I began to feel warmth. Started like a flicker. Just a little heat in my chest. At first I thought it was the pressure returning, but this wasn't painful. This was calming. Like the opposite of everything I'd felt all night. A peaceful, powerful warmth began to spread through me. First in my heart, then slowly to my arms, my legs, my throat. The grip on my neck began to loosen again. But this time it didn't tighten back. The darkness started to tremble. I couldn't see what was causing the shift yet, but I felt it. Something holy had entered the room. I couldn't move my body, but my spirit was alert. Something, or someone, was pushing back the darkness. The air was still thick but no longer suffocating. The demon hadn't disappeared, but it was retreating. I could almost hear it, like a growl, like rage being swallowed by fear. I realized something in that moment. The demon was afraid. It wasn't afraid of me. It was afraid of who I had called. Afraid of Jesus. And just like that, a wave of strength came over me. I could feel my fingers again. My legs tingled. My eyes focused. I tried again, this time with my lips, to say the name. Jesus. It came out barely above a whisper. But that whisper cracked something open. The darkness recoiled violently. My body jolted. My hands moved. I clutched my chest and gasped for air, breathing deeply for the first time in what felt like hours. The grip around my throat was gone. The paralysis was broken. I sat up in bed, drenched in sweat, panting, wide-eyed, terrified, but alive. The corner where the figure had stood was now empty. But I didn't feel alone. There was still something, or rather someone, in the room with me. I couldn't see him yet. I didn't hear a voice. But the presence was undeniable. Heavy, holy, loving, and powerful. And somehow I knew. Jesus was near. The battle wasn't fully over. I could feel the remnants of fear, the trauma of what just happened. But I had survived the worst of it. And I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because he showed up. I sat on the edge of my bed for what felt like hours, shaking, praying, crying, whispering his name again and again. I had heard testimonies before. I had mocked them. But now I had lived one. And deep inside I knew, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep again that night. How could I? After something like that, your entire sense of reality gets shaken. I sat in bed with the lights on, wrapped in a blanket, still trembling. I kept whispering the name of Jesus, not because I was trying to be spiritual, but because it was the only name that had power in that room. It was the only thing that worked. The fear hadn't fully left, but the evil presence was gone. And somehow deep down I knew he was still there, Jesus. Quiet, gentle, but powerful. When the sun finally rose, the light outside felt different. Not just because it was morning, but because I was alive to see it. I stepped out of bed, slowly, carefully, as if the floor might shift beneath me. Every movement felt like a miracle. Breathing felt like a gift. I walked over to the mirror and looked at myself. My face was pale, my eyes red from crying, but there was something else. Peace. A strange peace I couldn't explain. I knew I couldn't just ignore what happened. I had to make sense of it. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. My aunt, the one who used to pray for me as a kid. The one everyone in the family said was too spiritual. I used to avoid her because she always talked about Jesus like he was her best friend. But now, I needed someone who understood what I had just experienced. When she picked up the phone and heard my voice, she paused. "You saw something last night, didn't you?" she asked gently. I broke down in tears. "Yes," I whispered. "A demon. It tried to kill me." She didn't sound surprised. Not even a little. "But Jesus showed up," she said. "Didn't he?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yes, he did." She began to pray right there over the phone. Not long, dramatic words, just deep, sincere prayer. As she spoke the name of Jesus again, I started to cry harder. Not out of fear this time, but out of gratitude. I had experienced the darkness face to face, and now I was standing in the light. That day I made a decision. One I should have made years ago, but maybe I never really understood the weight of it until now. I gave my life to Christ. Truly. Not halfway, not casually. I surrendered. I got down on my knees right there in my room and said, "Jesus, I believe. I believe you're real. I believe you saved me. I believe you're the only reason I'm still alive. I don't want to live without you again." And as I prayed, I felt it, that same warmth from the night before. It wrapped around me like a blanket. I couldn't see him, but I knew he was smiling. Not because I had been perfect. Not because I had earned anything. But because he loved me. He had loved me even when I didn't care. Even when I mocked him. Even when I doubted. Days passed. Then weeks. I started reading the Bible, not just out of obligation but hunger. Every word came alive to me. Scriptures about spiritual warfare, about how we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, about how demons tremble at the name of Jesus. They weren't just verses to me anymore. They were reality. I found a local church and joined. I shared my story with the pastor. He listened with tears in his eyes and prayed over me. I shared it with others too, people who were skeptical just like I had been. Some believed, some didn't. But I didn't care anymore. I knew what I experienced. I knew who had saved me. Since that night, my life has not been perfect. I still face challenges. I still get scared sometimes. But I never feel alone. Because now I know Jesus isn't just a figure in a book. He's real. He's alive. He shows up when we call on him. And no matter how dark the night may be, his name pierces through it like light. Sometimes I still wake up at night. And sometimes I remember that shadow, that evil presence. But I'm not afraid anymore. Because now I know what to do. I speak his name. I worship. I rest in him. And I remind myself that the same Jesus who came into my room and drove out a demon is the same Jesus who lives in me. So if you're listening to this and you're facing something dark, something you can't explain, maybe you've even felt that same heaviness in the night, don't wait like I did. Call on Jesus. Don't wait for things to get worse. Don't wait until you're out of strength. Call on him now. Whisper his name. Even in your mind, even if you're too afraid to speak, call out, "Jesus." Because I'm living proof. He hears. He responds. And he shows up. And when he does, the darkness has no choice but to flee.